Right, so it is night 137 of my attempt to plant a tree every day in 2023, and we are going to be doing our planting in an area where I'm really hoping the owls aren't still feeling territorial, so let's get on with it. Right, so I have pre-dug a hole for tonight while I was waiting for the camcorder to charge, and we're going to be putting rubble pieces all the way around this, not only to create drainage, because both of today's plants want quite a lot of drainage, but also because both the tree and one of its companion plants are the only ones I have of their kind, and I suspect both of them would be quite vulnerable to mole rats. So first up, we're going to be putting in not the tree, but one of the companion plants. Now this is one of the aloes that I took from a friend's garden, and I can't ask him what he is without resorting to a Ouija board, so I will be waiting for it to flower to be sure what it is, but I think it might be Aloe cryptopoda. Which is quite an interesting aloe generally. It's got quite a long stem, it does sucker quite vigorously it seems. This is actually a sucker from one that was growing in a very shady spot and wasn't looking its best, so I thought I'd try propagating a bit out into a sunnier spot, and this spot will get sun most of the day during winter. It'll get a little bit less once we're into the rainy season until I get around to some pruning I'd be meaning to do, but hopefully I will be able to do that in the next 6 months or so. That is going to be going in the hole first, and that root wrapping around the base of the hole should hopefully mean that we get some springing up from suckers of that root all the way around, and we should get a nice sort of even coverage of this eventually. Now today's tree is a yucca. I'm not entirely sure which yucca, but I believe it's Yucca aloifolia. I know for certain it's not Yucca guatemalensis, but exactly which species it is, I'm not sure. I'm hoping for Yucca aloifolia, which I would count as a tree once it is mature. Yucca gloriosa, which I'm almost certain this is not, does not count as a tree by my books, because it really doesn't get much taller than me, and it certainly doesn't get to a size where one could reasonably be expected to walk under it. Yucca aloifolia does take a certain amount of maintenance to maintain as a tree, because it does tend to sucker quite vigorously, but with a little bit of care and attention it does form quite a nice, quite a sort of heavy, relatively low tree, and can be very impressive. It's actually one that I'm quite fond of, because one of my grandfathers, who passed away when I was very, very small, had planted one of these in the garden of a different grandmother to the one whose garden I am planting this in the UK actually, and it was getting very large and unmanageable, and it was probably my first real foray into gardening when, as a teenager, my grandmother there one summer asked me to remove it, and by the time I'd taken off all the dead leaves around the base and it had become quite a striking plant in the process, she decided that I didn't need to continue to the next step, which was cutting through the stems I had just cleared, because it was now taking up much less space and quite a striking plant. And it was then I realised that a little bit of pruning, even if it doesn't directly benefit the plant, can be very beneficial to extending the life of some trees. Then there's a little toxic barrier, and just to add a little bit of extra sort of visual interest here, we're going to be putting in two different species of calico. So on the far side from the camera, we're going to be putting in two pieces of the Tugela cliffs calico, which is the Calico longiflora, and then on the side closer to the camera I will be putting in two pieces of Calico glossfeldiana. And that should give us yellow flowers in the back, red flowers in the front, and that should be quite striking, hopefully, as well as providing that nice little toxic barrier to keep these protected. Right, so that should be everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please tune in again tomorrow. I will be planting something different, and probably without the tomb bats chittering away in the background. Right, so I almost made a comment earlier about how fortunate it is that camcorders don't record smell, because I have had roast garlic tonight, and today's planting did go into an area the dogs often use for their ablutions. But right now, I wish I could record the smell that I am smelling, because the smell of jasmine, almost, that is coming off these flowers is just phenomenal. They are incredibly fragrant, just sort of overwhelmingly almost. They're actually slightly less strong than they were a couple of nights ago. Even though tonight is actually slightly warmer, they do seem to close up during the day. They don't seem to have a particularly strong fragrance, especially towards the middle of the day. But at night they just release this phenomenal smell, and these are the flowers of one of our much abused companion plants, which is Dracena fragrans. I think you can probably see there where its name comes from.